Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, on a fabulous and fantastic Friday. We made it all the way to the end of the week here on the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us part of your day. Jay's joining me here. Well, back-to-back thrillers in the Stanley Cup Final and in the NBA Finals from Game 1 last night. Game 2 tonight. What are we going to get? Are the Panthers going to retaliate and tie the series? Or are the Oilers already on the gas pedal? They want to make it 2-0 here in the series. Wow. Did you watch that from Tyrese Halliburton last night? What a finish that was.
I swear the Pacers have been the kings of comebacks this playoffs because, I don't like to make excuses, but, there is a prime, reason in the sports world, and anybody that knows or has played sports knows that, not only not having a key piece to your offense and or defense makes a big difference. But ever since the Cavs lost Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, but that first game, I knew that the Cavs were not going to win because they fell behind because they did not have the key pieces to their offense and defense, and then they just weren't healthy the entire playoffs. So, I like once they came back and they tied it up and they had a chance. They were up by 15 going into the fourth quarter, and then they lose by 1 in game 2. I'm like, yeah, the Cavs have no shot at this. Like, if they would have taken game 1, if they would have had Evan Mobley and Darius Garland and the other person, I can't remember his name for the life of me, but if they would have had those three, it would have been a whole different series. But, people may say it's excuses and everything, but nobody knows how, important a key piece is. It would be like an example of Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert missing for their teams, or it would be like Myles Garrett missing for the Cleveland Browns on that defensive side of the ball, or another prime example of it would be like Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison missing for the Minnesota Vikings on that offensive side of the ball. The two key pieces that make your offense or your team click, not being in there, makes a big difference.
It does. It makes all the difference in the world. And again, it usually just predicts what now the team is going to end up looking like with those crucial pieces now out of the lineup. But we'll talk a little bit more up upon it. But we have been on the gas pedal with a lot of our interviews, and we got a stacked show here tonight. So we're going to be shifting up and into Major League Baseball because the season already kicking off. And, we're now in the dog days of summer. It's been a very interesting one. And I watched this team from the very beginning where I was like, wow, they got some interesting pieces from here. Little bit of small ball here and there, Sandy Alcantara, and a lot more to look forward to in the coming years. And we'll see what comes up in the next coming months. But joining us, locking on the Miami Marlins, Jeremiah Geiger joins. Well, I will say, Jeremiah, because, when I watched this team, the start of the season, they were off to a pretty hot start. And I was like, okay, small ball. they're kind of implementing some things here and there. And I love Sandy Alcantara. I think when he's on his stuff, the rest of the pitching staff, they're going to follow along with him. And now we're kind of in the middle of the months of June. So how do you kind of see this playing out? I know they're sitting right now in the position in the NL East, but how do you kind of see this brewing up come down into the second half of the season here for this team?
Yeah, I think with Sandy Alcantara in particular, you got to look at his trade value. The Marlins are rebuilding, and coming into the season, Sandy Alcantara was expected to be traded at the deadline. That was the expectation. If he pitches well and returns healthy from Tommy John surgery, he was going to be one of the main pieces at this deadline because the Marlins aren't contenders. They're rebuilding. The issue is, Jake, the Marlins and Sandy Alcantara, the Marlins aren't contending. That's step one of the plan, the availability to trade him. Sandy Alcantara has pitched awful. He's had one really decent start, and that came last week, earlier this week against the Rockies, rather. So he needs to string a couple of these together to get his trade value back up. Otherwise, the Marlins, there's no reason for them to sell low on a pitcher of his caliber. He has all the talent in the world. You can't sell low, especially when you have 2 more years of control. So right now, where I'm sitting at watching this team, it's about development. Watching Sandy, can he get back to form? Watching the younger players. Agustin Ramirez got called up, one of the Marlins' top prospects. He's a catcher. How does he continue to perform day in and day out? And that's really all we can do at this point.
Yeah, and it is interesting because I mean, watching baseball for a very long time and just seeing the waves of just the Marlins, I really thought that like years ago, I'm sure you felt this way too, that this team would have had the build and the makings to where they can make the postseason. Now, of course, we know they made the postseason in a short year, but after all of that, you would think they would have built off of that for quite some time. But now they're trying to get younger pieces. They're trying to now, see what prospects they've got now that they are capable of shaping this thing to where they can be a threat in the NL East. So one piece in particular who's leading the Marlins in literally almost every category, Kyle Stowers, man. I mean, watching this kid, I think he does have a very bright future here with this organization and with the rest of these young pieces. How impressed have you been with Stowers right now at this point? And is he that guy that's going to help to be a part of that piece for the Marlins to really take him to be over the top the next few years?
Kyle Stowers has been great, which is funny because last season he was acquired at the deadline from Baltimore. He got to play every day in the outfield for the Marlins, who were out of contention at that point, and he was awful, like legitimately one of baseball's worst hitters. And coming into spring training, a lot of Marlin fans didn't even want him on the opening day roster. That's how bad it was. Couldn't hit the fastball, and as you know, if you can't hit a major league fastball, then your career's dead before it even takes off. You're not going to survive. And then this season, he makes the opening day roster, very low expectations, and just takes off. I mean, the power, the contact, the defense. He's literally outperformed everybody's expectations. And you're right. He's a player who the Marlins can look at and say, okay, you're 27 years old. It's not necessarily young by prospect standards, but you can be here a few years. And if 2026, 2027 rolls around and this team is on an upward trajectory, then Stowers absolutely can be a piece of the puzzle for this team, which is great to see. It was really, really much needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, the one thing I look at is like Jesus Sanchez and several others on this young roster. I mean, is there a prospect in mind that you feel like watching them in the farm system that could come in and really like surprise the Marlins organization for just how good that he is right now as they're kind of building up this young, fresh roster to be prepared to compete in the next few years?
I wouldn't say necessarily surprise the Marlins. I would say surprise baseball. Joe Mack is a catcher in AAA who, when Agustin Ramirez was called up, they promoted Joe Mack from AA to AAA Jacksonville. And I was watching him live about a month ago. The sound off his bat is just different. He's got an upright stance. He can hit the ball a mile. I mean, the power is ridiculous. And the best thing with him playing a premium position as a catcher is the defense is there too. He has a cannon for an arm. He can throw out all the runners trying to steal. He calls a great game, plays good defense. I think there's a real possibility you're going to see Joe Matt get called up in September, kind of be one of the waves of those September call-ups. And into 2026, there's no reason to not believe that he's going to be the opening day catcher for the Marlins next season if everything goes well and he continues to develop.
Oh man, I'd be excited about that. And watching, college baseball as well right now with the College World Series. I mean, many bright futures that are amongst them. We know that we get the first player draft, the MLB player draft and everything that comes up as well. Is there anybody in particular that the Miami Marlins are eyeballing and targeting that they know could be a much needed help in some areas and in some spots, whether pitching, hitting in the lineup or even in fielding in some certain positions? Anybody in mind that the Marlins could be targeting?
Yeah, so when it comes to the draft, it's very different than, say, the NBA or NFL because these guys come right in. They're ready to rock and roll. With baseball, it's about making the right selection and then developing them throughout the next couple of years, which the Marlins have done a really bad job of doing, especially hitters. They're really good at developing pitchers, not hitters. What I want to see the Marlins do this season, they have the 7th overall pick. I want them to go after a high school shortstop. Get a high school shortstop who plays a premium position with athleticism, who you can rein in these tools, these natural God-given tools, and develop him into an above-average major leaguer. That's what they need. I think the pitching side of things, Liam Doyle for Tennessee is an absolute stud. He's not going to drop to 7, though. That's the issue. So if you were higher up in the lottery, maybe. But right now, I'd be targeting a middle infielder, particularly a shortstop.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And it's funny because, I watch a guy like Max Muncy right now with the with the A's now, and just seeing with, the potential that he has on the bat and on the defense. If somebody of the similar caliber, if not even higher, for the Miami Marlins to play up in shortstop every day, that'd be a heck of a steal and a heck of a build for the next couple of years. I've grown up around baseball for a very long time, and I've watched this game significantly change with so many different rule changes and all the rest of this stuff. And I'm sure you've heard this multiple times and maybe had some input up on it, but I've said this to fans. If you implement the idea of a salary cap in Major League Baseball, who are you benefiting more? The owners. I live here in Denver, and I watch the Colorado Rockies and how terribly horrifying that this team is. Now, I know it kind of stings, the fact that, they came into Miami and swept them. But, when you start looking at these smaller market teams, and I'll say this, it's like most of these teams don't realize that these owners, they got money. It's not just money they have personally, but I even say this about the Cincinnati Bengals. They've got some shareholders in there. If they're going to tap into those money that's saved up from there that they know that they'll have to pay back in the next few years, that's what's going to afford a lot of these contracts. So to me, I don't agree with the idea of a salary cap for a reason, but I do believe at some point we got to now penalize these owners if they're not paying up in the money perspective to be competitive. I think what we're watching in the NBA Finals, this is Adam Silver's his vision of parity in the NBA. Do you think at some point Rob Manfred is going to end up making some parity in the league so a team like Miami and Colorado and Pittsburgh, they can all compete in the same circle?
I would love that to happen, because not a salary cap. I agree with you. The issue with the salary cap, it's not going to affect the Miami Marlins. Bruce Sherman, the owner, he's paid for 2 free agents over the last 2 years combined. It's inexcusable. Combined $8.5 million over 2 years. Like, let that sink in. That's pathetic. There's no excuse for that. He's bleeding money. He's somebody that a salary cap is going to be like, okay, well, I would never reach half of that revenue anyway. So for the parity, you can think about a salary floor possibly. I don't think Manfred wants the parity to be on the same level as the NBA. We talk about, the Pacers and Thunder in the finals, which I think is great. I like watching Halliburton. I like watching SGA, but you're going to have the big market fans just, no one cares about this. And that's even worse in baseball. Think about the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, how much revenue you get on a nationwide basis. Manfred's going to sit back and be like, well, I don't care about the Marlins. Like, their last World Series was 22 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, no, 100%. If it's not Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, or even those little Cubbies and some of those other teams that we know are willing to pay out the money and the viewership and the sponsorships that come along with it, it's like, I ain't got no time with it,
Exactly.
But it's funny because, we're watching the Stanley Cup final right now up in Game 2 tonight, and I'm impressed with the state of Florida, with the fact that we have 6 straight years that a Florida team has made it into the final, Tampa Bay and, the Florida Panthers. So, I overlook a lot of these other teams in the state of Florida, and watching the Panthers right now and all of the hype, I'm sure you've heard a lot about it there on that side. Does that kind of give a little bit more motivation, at least from a city standpoint? I mean, I've watched the Miami Heat win championships. I'm watching the Florida Panthers win championships. Miami, the Dolphins, however, we'll see what happens because they're kind of playing right now for their job. But does that kind of add some motivation to the Marlins that, hey, we want to be on the same tier level? I mean, great that hockey's successful, but hey, we still are here. I mean, 2 World Series championships. Why not get back into that, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think of Florida, the Panthers, they used to be a terrible franchise in the NHL. They're in their 3rd consecutive Stanley Cup finals. The arena for these finals games, for these playoff games, are packed. The fans love them. They're diehard fans, but they're also winning. They've done the necessary requirements to win. They've invested financially. They've made smart personnel decisions. It's an example where Miami fans, sports fans in particular, they're going to tune out the Marlins, who are 15 games under 500, to go watch the Panthers. And can you blame them? Because I can't. I love the Marlins, but hey, the diehard baseball fan's going to watch the Marlins. The casual Miami sports fan, it's so much easier to get behind a winner. That's just how it is. And the Panthers have done a really good job of that. The Heat did it for years. I mean, even a couple years ago, they made the finals. The Marlins haven't had that in 20 plus years. And unless something changes, unless there's some transparency with the fan base and commitment, not just by word of mouth, but financially, it's not going to change. And you're going to see everyone go to Sunrise and go to these games for the Panthers, whereas Lone Depot Park, you can hear a pin drop on a midday matinee. It's terrible.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. If only we could turn back the clock to 2003, because I could see that picture from there. Man, people would be just rocking all around up in the Miami South Beach area. But one final question before we move on is, we talked about the salary cap side. Now, I'm looking at the rules changes that we're seeing right now, because I wish this existed when I played baseball. I mean, now we're starting to get more in depth with challenges now. We're challenging certain pitch locations. We're challenging, safe or out, type of situations. And of course, the home runs, I mean, they've been around for a long time. But one thing that I've said, this game is getting even more innovative. And I wish they would have done this a few years ago, because then they would have trumped the ratings. I don't think they'll trump over the NFL, but they would at least match the competition, if not closer to it. So I don't agree with the golden at bat rule. I think that's just silly. I don't even think you need to tweak it like that. But how impressed have you been with these rule changes? And is this the rule change that could change the platform of Major League Baseball for the near future? Because, again, I love it, and I think we're going to get much better accuracy of pitches, of balls and strikes now. And how do we even fight the umpires at the end of the day? Because I don't want to take away the whole morality of the game when you got an umpire and a manager screaming in his face. So how do you think that trajectory might look like in the next few years?
I think you're going to see the ABS system be implemented fairly soon, whether it's 2026, 2027, the automatic ball strike system. It's so easy. It literally takes 10 seconds for them to make a call, and then the game continues. The pitch clock also has been a great addition because it speeds up the game. I mean, you hardly even notice it either when you're watching on TV or you're watching in person. You're not going to pay attention to that aspect, but suddenly 2 hours later, you're out on time and the pitcher's not taking 30 minutes to get through an inning. You have, 40 pitching changes in a game. That's been another good addition. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't like the golden at-bat rule. I thought that was stupid, to be quite honest with you. It's just don't make the game something it's not. You have to keep some tradition because baseball is a traditionalist sport. I also don't like the idea of having a full robot umpire where there's not an actual physical umpire behind home plate and on the bases. The only rule that I think I would change, extra innings with the ghost runner on second. I was never a fan of that. They did that in the COVID season. It just changes the game. It changes the strategy. You've already played 9 innings. If you want to go win it the right way. But no, you're right. To say that Major League Baseball hasn't succeeded in implementing these rule changes, it's an understatement. They have, and they're going to continue it, hopefully, with the ABS system shortly.
That's really interesting because to me, like with the ghost runner rule, I was for this. I was like, keep that in season. Don't put it in the postseason because the postseason it's the bright lights, it's pressurizing, and that's where you got to fight for it. It's like in hockey when we have the shootout after we go through regulation and we obviously need a winner, at some point. But I love the fact the tempo and the speed now. Like I could go to a game on a Tuesday night and be okay with 2 hours, and then I got to work the next day. I can't do 4 hours, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, I got to put the kids to bed. I got to do, some stuff to do. But at least they're trending in the right direction, and I think it's exciting. We just don't want to get too excited to where we put ridiculous rule like that up out there. So again, I criticized Rob Manfred for quite a while, and now that we're seeing these changes and it's much better, and now the old heads, they'll get over it, they'll figure it out. But again, it's not like we're changing the tradition of the game. We're trying to make the tradition better. That's all that we're trying to do. I don't agree with the baseball writers with this whole Hall of Fame, induction stuff because the last few years, oh dear Lord, but yeah, I think it's trending in the right direction for a brighter future. But Jeremiah, appreciate you coming on by, man. Let everybody know for our radio and our audiences up and out there, where can people find you to get locked on for Miami Marlins content?
Absolutely. Locked On Marlins is on YouTube. It's just Locked On Marlins. Search it in the search engine. You got it. Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, all the major podcast platforms, and daily episodes Monday through Friday, about half an hour long, bringing you just all the latest news, rumors, analysis. I got you all covered over there. And yeah, it's I appreciate the time being able to hop on here and talk some ball with you, Jake.
Absolutely, man. Love having you on there. Like I said, guys, tap in, check out Locked On Marlins wherever you guys get your podcast. Jeremiah, appreciate you stopping on by, man. Enjoy your Friday and enjoy the weekend, and we will see you very shortly. Good luck to the rest of the season.
Thanks, Jake. Take care.
Absolutely. Well, there you go. Hey, smaller market team, and we're watching 2 smaller market teams battle off in the NBA Finals.
One thing that could help the Marlins change into a winning team?
Yeah.
Dusty Baker.
You're not wrong. I mean, well, what are we seeing right now from Terry Francona in Cincinnati?
Yeah.
Terry.
The manager makes a difference in the team because, you look at Dusty Baker, for example. He spent 2 years in Cincinnati, took them to the playoffs, won a divisional or a wild card series, and went to a divisional series. He was the manager for the Cubs, took them to the playoffs. He was a manager for the Giants, went to the World Series, and then for the Astros, won 2 World Series championships with them, and then retired. It's all about the manager. I mean, look at the Guardians. You had Manny Acta as the active manager. He gets fired, and then we hire Yeah, he was awful. And then we hired Terry Francona in 2013, and his first year there in 2013, we make it as a wild card team, and then 3 years later, to the World Series. Like the manager makes a huge difference, and I think some of these smaller market teams, even though they are garbage now, if you can get a good, solid manager in there that knows what they're doing, you could easily change this team into a wild card team.
So we got a question up from here, and we're tapping in with a lot of our folks, and a lot of our audiences and our fans' questions. But what do you guys think about the Tigers? Think about how the Tigers are playing. I think they're playing great, and again, a small market team as well that's making a lot of surprises. And they're
not really a small market team. They
kind of moving the money at that point kind of seemed like it. But I
mean,
am happy.
The Rodriguez is because it was Ivan Rodriguez, it was his dad that owned it. He owns the Little Caesars franchises and owns the Red Wings as well. He's been putting more money into the Red Wings over the past few years when he was alive. Now that he has passed away and everything, his son has taken over. He's been, slowly transitioning to try to put the money into the Tigers to make them a winning organization, because I knew that Detroit was a hockey town. They cared more about the hockey than what they did the baseball. And I still think that they do to this day. But the Detroit Tigers have never been shy of spending money. But, as a baseball fan and somebody that's paid attention to the sport ever since they were 3 years old, I don't see them. No, it was the Rodriguez's Ivan, or no, it wasn't it Ivan Rodriguez or no, it wasn't.
No, I know what you're talking about, but yeah, I don't think it was him. I think it was somebody else that was up in.
Okay. Regardless, I know that they own a lot of the Little Caesars franchises in there and everything, but as a guy who's watched baseball ever since he was 3 years old, I have known never to get ahead of myself when it comes to rooting for a team at the beginning of the season, because just because you are on a hot streak at the beginning of the season does not mean you are going to be on that at the end of the season. Some teams overcome it. Some teams do, like the Dodgers. They've been hot at the beginning of the season and, been able to ride that wave and that coattail all the way through the end. But if you look at last year, the Reds started off very hot at the beginning of the season, won 30 or 40 games, and then cooled off towards the very end. And they weren't able to manage that success all the way through. And the Guardians, I remember we started off for the first 3 or 4 months of the season, we were in second place or even knocked down to third place. And then we ended up winning the division last year. So it's as a baseball fan, I love what the Tigers are doing in terms of in my division. I hate it, but I love what they're doing as well. And I do think that they are on a great path. But I would say don't get your hopes up until after the All-Star break and see if they can continue what they're doing.
Very true. All right, moving on. Well, we've had some great college football talk yesterday, and we're continuing that here today and a little bit more up on it. But now we're focusing up and into the Big 12, because we know Arizona State, they made it into the college football playoff, but there is still some action that's going on, at least with the Big 12, and it'll be exciting to see what this team in particular. So talking more about Kansas State from here, Christian Rowe joins the show. So the Big 12 was really interesting last season because, you got Arizona State, who ended up representing for the Big 12 and, with the conference bid and such. And then there were a couple teams mixtures that were kind of surprises. Kansas came in and they started, spoiling everybody's hopes of making the playoffs, And so when I look at Kansas State, I've always respected their program. I think they've got some very good players. And I think, to the extent, if they keep up with the competition that they have in the Big 12, I think they've got some pretty good, bright futures amongst them and be competitive for the next few years. What did you take in from last season? Because ending it with a bowl game victory as well, is there kind of something that now the expectation is a little bit different now for Kansas State this year?
Well, the expectation's got to get to be over that 8-win hump. Going 8-4 2 years in a row,
just obviously needs to change. But if you look back at the season as a whole, I mean, it was Avery Johnson's first year at quarterback. It was him learning to be the quarterback after Will Howard, who, by the way, went to Ohio State and won a national championship. So you go from that moment, and he starts off strong. He starts off 7-1, and then the wheels fall off against Houston, and a team that you didn't think the wheels would fall off against. It happens against the Houston Cougars. Then they fall against Arizona State, who nobody had that on their bingo card. I mean, the Big 12 media days, we ranked them in the polls at the very bottom. We ranked them last to finish in the Big 12 their first year into the conference. And they wind up winning the whole thing and just being a fourth and 13 away from beating Texas in the college football playoffs. So that's where I see Kansas State right now. I mean, you start really strong, the wheels fall off, you finish 8-4, but that bowl game that they had against Rutgers in the Rate Bowl was impressive. They started off weak. It was the complete flip side of how the season went. They started weak, they had an amazing comeback victory, and all the momentum this offseason has really carried into what should be a really good game to start the college football season in week 0 against Iowa State. Should be a really good game, and I think Kansas State's going to shock a lot of people this season.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think honestly with just the build, because again, I mean, watching Will Howard and then just seeing with where this team is going. Yeah, I mean, if they could get over that hump and if they could get 2 more wins this upcoming season, I think they'd be in very, very good shape. So looking at the college football season, because I talked about this last night with a guest of mine, and it's really going to be fun to watch because I love college football. It's very tribal, and people are just they are so invested in it. And now with the college football playoff, now it's no longer conference bid mattering where you rank up at because you're going to have the 4 best teams. And then 5 through 12, they're going to have to work up the ladders if they want to get into the big dance of the national championship. So looking at that, and when they made that adjustment, I mean, this is anybody's ball game at this point. If they really want to prove to themselves, they want to be in here. I think I've always said this. It's like your invitation to the Met Gala. You get your free drink ticket. You come in and you're hanging out with the best of the best that's been there and done that and has won championships. Could that be something that's inspiring and motivating Kansas State to get those extra wins and shoot for their case to maybe make it in at some point?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at Kansas State as a whole, not just college football, but as a whole, they don't have a national championship. Kansas State is looking for their first national championship basically as a university. So getting to not only the college football playoffs, but getting to the national championship is obviously a goal. And of course, all 134 teams can say the same exact thing. But I think it means a little bit more when you are a team that has gone through a great coaching past and program past with Bill Snyder, and then immediately go into Chris Kleiman, who is really doing a great job filling the shoes of arguably one of the best college coaches of all time. Not the best, but one of the best. And I think he is definitely deserving of a top 10 all-time ranking in college football as Bill Snyder. When I look at Kansas State, I look at them not only as a program that can develop talent, and then unfortunately you see them go to other schools, Big Ten, SEC. We just saw it last year in national championship. But this year, especially with the whole new straight seating, which I do like, but don't get used to because in 2026 they're going to wind up changing it again and going to 16 teams, and it's going to be crazy. We'll see what happens with that portion. But when I look at Kansas State this year, I look at Avery Johnson, obviously the main player in this one. Quarterback, when you look at it, that's the easiest thing to say. I get it. It's not a cop out. It's just exactly what it is. Avery Johnson is going to be the backbone of this team. He had a huge spring. I think he really took this team on his back. Not only is he just the team that or the player that was going to be, the first year quarterback, he is now going to be the leader of this team in his second full season as the starting quarterback at Kansas State. In spring, they focused on strength more than the spring practices. A lot of players really focused on their strength and conditioning. The entire program gained over 700 pounds of muscle. I mean, that's a huge number to think about when you're thinking of an entire program. But Avery Johnson was one of those main attractions when you're talking about adding speed and size. He looks great. Best shape of my life season, absolutely. But he is in the 23 mile an hour club as well. So a dual threat quarterback who can run the speeds up to 23 miles an hour joins his running back pair of Dylan Edwards, who, I mean, if you followed the Coach Prime year in the first year, all the people getting excited in national media saw Dylan Edwards in his freshman season. He's back at Kansas State being RB1 for the first time in his collegiate career. I'm really excited about this offense, Jake. I really do think that this is a team that can really shock the world. And it's exciting that they get to do it on a national stage before anybody else gets to. Week 0, Iowa State versus Kansas State in Dublin, Ireland. It is the first college football game on the schedule, on the docket. There's no other game. It's a standalone game. And I think Kansas State gets the proven message before anybody else gets to.
So I like with what I saw from DJ Giddens, and I do think that the Colts are really going to get, a good rotational piece in that, running back room. So with Giddens now up and in the pros, is there somebody, because I know I think Kansas State, looking at the Big 12 and their type of play, they like to mix things up a bit. So they like to incorporate some pass plays and then at the same time work in the trenches, much like, a heavier style like what the Big Ten is always used to, because it's more trench warfare, it's more ground and pound, and it's physical. Is there anybody that catches your eye right now that could be a big X factor in the run game to help with Kansas State, especially for some of those important games against tough defenses this upcoming season?
Yeah, look, DJ Giddens is going to be a tough shoe to fill. There's no doubt about that. He ran for over 1,300 yards last year. He had 2 games over 180 yards against Big 12 opponents, Oklahoma State and Colorado, a Colorado team that at one point was fighting for the college football playoffs. You got a big shoe to fill. There's no doubt about it. And I don't know if you fill it with just one person. I think, go ahead, Moneyball reference here. I think you take care of it in the aggregate. I think you do that. And the way you do that is through, I think, 3 different players on this roster. One of them I already mentioned, Dylan Edwards. He's fast. He's speedy, already in the 23-mile-an-hour club, really good at running for the off tackles. I think you can use him not only in the backfield, but in screens and motions, you name it. I think he's what I like to call a game wrecker or a home run hitter. He's one of those guys where you're looking for that big play. Dylan Edwards is that guy. And I do think he's going to break out this season. And then you have 2 other players on the roster that I think really just fit the game perfectly. I think Chris Kleiman did a really good job filling his roster when it came to finding fit. Maybe not the top end talent. You're not talking about maybe 5-star recruits or that case, but we're talking about fit here. And I think that was really important for him to add. Joe Jackson, I think, does a really good job at doing that, fitting the additions with Dylan Edwards. And then Antonio Martin was a late spring transfer portal pickup coming over from the FCS. And he's one of those guys that is just a big dude. I mean, I heard one source call him the thick guy. Like, he's just a big dude. And when you talk about the speediness of Dylan Edwards, a goal line short yardage threat of Antonio Martin could wind up being the guy that you love the most. But overall, I don't think you're going to see one person that takes over DJ Giddens, just to answer your question in the long form here. But I think you're going to be able to find 3 players that really get you excited for. And I could make the argument because of that, they have the best running back room in the Big 12.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And speaking of it with Avery Johnson as the quarterback, because of course you look at some of the weapons that he has. I look at, Jace Brown and what you can provide me with how he's looking at, and building up to his stature, because he almost had, 1,000 receiving yards and he had 5 scores. Is there going to be potentially a big jump with him this upcoming season to really kind of give him that reliable target for Avery Johnson to target at this upcoming season?
I'm going to go 2 ways here. I think he makes a step forward, but maybe not on the stat sheet. And here's why. One, they have a new offensive coordinator, technically, with Matt Wells. Connor Riley heads out to be the new offensive line coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and they shared the co-offensive coordinator spot last year. Matt Wells, former Utah State coach, former Texas Tech coach, is now going to be the offensive coordinator, the sole offensive coordinator for Kansas State this season. What he has done in the past as an offensive coordinator, when he is the guy at the helm, or just as a head coach, especially at Utah State, there is a quarterback that plays in the NFL right now named Jordan Love. He was their quarterback that under the Matt Wells system. And he was very good with play action. We still see that with him in Green Bay. He did that really good at Utah State. If he can find a way to excel and bring Avery out of his shell a little more, because there were some issues with Avery's game last year. I'm not blind to the fact that there were some issues with Avery Johnson's game, especially towards the end. I will put a little caveat on that and say I do think that he was injured, not 100%, especially after that Colorado game. But if Matt Wells can open him up, I think that helps out Jace Brown, getting some of those big time plays, making sure that he, gets the love and gets fed. I do think he is still wide receiver 1 on this team. The biggest thing that Kansas State got this year was retention in the portal, Jake. They saved so many players going. I thought Jace Brown was leaving. There was rumors a day before the bowl game that he was planning to enter the portal. There was all this stuff happening on social media. He squashed it like an hour before the game against Rutgers, and then he wound up having a good game. I think he scored the first touchdown of the Rate Bowl, if I remember. He scored once. I can't remember if it was the first touchdown. If he excels, great. I don't think he'll get 1,000 yards though, because I think the wide receiver room is better for Avery Johnson. You're talking about the running back room, who's already strong. Avery Johnson, who I think is going to run a lot more as well, especially with this play action if it opens up. But some of these other receivers that came in the transfer portal, you're talking Jared Bradley, former from Texas Tech and from Boston College, and Jared Tibbs, a former player from Purdue, who was arguably probably the best wide receiver on that really bad Purdue team. But they bring in size. 6'4", 6'5". That's something that Kansas State has not had in quite some time, if ever. And now you're dealing with Avery Johnson, who had some issues when it came to throwing accuracy towards the end of the season. Well, if you have a target share towards 6'4", 6'5" receivers, that's going to really clean that self up itself. So Jace Brown, I still call my wide receiver 1, but I don't know if he's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver, but I don't think that changes how good he's going to be. I think he's an NFL talent still.
No, I agree. I mean, watching his route tree and what he's going to potentially bring to the table, and hopefully he comes in a big way for this upcoming season and be that wide receiver that a lot of teams scouting, they're going to absolutely want a part of their roster to really bolster up the arsenal on the offense. So really,
and he's just like Dylan. He's just like Dylan Edwards too when it comes to the speed. He might not have hit that 23-mile-an-hour club that we like to talk about this year, but in the Rate Bowl, Matt Wells, for the first time, really had the helm of the play calling. We saw a lot of jet sweeps that involved Jace Brown as well. So you might not just see him as a deep threat receiver, but you're going to see him get a lot of explosive plays, maybe off the tackle or off the end in some jet sweeps. So, man, like I said, you should be really excited for this offense this year, and you get a first taste before anybody else does in Dublin.
Man, can't wait to see it this upcoming season. Christian, appreciate you for coming on by, man. Thank you for giving your insights with Kansas State. Where can people find more of your content here? We're locking on with the Wildcats.
Yeah, gotta love it. Lockdown Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts, on YouTube, or you can find me on Twitter at LockedOnKState.
There you go. Cannot wait for the up-and-coming college football season, man. I'm so excited about it. I think it's going to be bigger and better than what we got from last year with the experiment of the 12-team playoff, and now it's going to be even better. Appreciate you for stopping on by, Christian. Enjoy the Friday and the weekend, and we'll see you very soon.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks.
Absolutely. All right, we ain't stopping there. The gas pedal, we are still stuck on it, and this time we're going to be talking a lot of some NBA talk, and one in particular knows a thing or two about the Phoenix Suns, but also has his own show, and you've seen him on the Ben Garcia Show. So joining us, of course, the man himself, Ben Garcia, joins the show. So I was going to give my thoughts here a little bit later on, but I got to tell you, watching last night's game, especially with two small market teams going at it between OKC and Indiana, I mean, I said this about Tyrese Halliburton. I don't think he's a superstar just yet. He's kind of itching his way to his stardom, but he is a star that everybody really rallies around. So that buzzer beater last night was just a classic example of you're in the moment, you got to make a clutch shot, and I thought he did exactly that. I mean, what were your thoughts from that game one last night? Because that was, I think that was just entertaining for the most part. But Indiana, I mean, this ain't no series to take lightly from this.
Yeah, man. You also forgot to mention in the intro that a little bit tardy here. Apologies for that, man. Got my times mixed up there. Hey, listen, there's a first for everything. And maybe last night, Howie's first time stepping into the superstardom, but I think that's the first time I've ever been tardy to a guest appearance. Hopefully I don't make that a normal thing. I'm sitting over here taking a break playing college football, and I'm like, wait, what the heck? Oh, that's right. I'm supposed to be on this show. So apologies for that, man. What I will say right off the bat is I really appreciate you taking the term superstar very seriously. This is something I've gotten in a decent amount of trouble for because I hold that word to a very high regard. I think at most, and during the NBA season, you have 6 to 8 superstars. These are guys that if they're on your team, you have a chance to win a championship. I consider three guys in it who maybe people still don't consider those guys to be in that category, given the fact that they're just older, but they're grandfathered in until it's so obvious I have to rip them out. LeBron, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, like those three guys are still in there. Then you go to Luka, and you have, I don't consider Jason Tatum to be in this tier. I think Luka Doncic is in that tier. I think Anthony Edwards is in that tier. Tyrese Halliburton is interesting, man, because he's actually a bigger guard. He's 6'6", 6'7", if I'm not mistaken. But he's not he's not built like a linebacker. He's just a skinny dude out there dropping buckets. It's the correct take right now to say he's not a superstar, because we've seen guys get to the finals, like a guy in my own backyard, Devin Booker. Devin Booker was in the same conversation Tyrese Halliburton is in right now, the fringe superstar status, which was in 2021, they go up 2 games to none on the Bucks. And every Suns fan was like, superstar. Yep, got it. He is. Sorry, he just he is what he is. And then the real superstar in that series, Giannis Antetokounmpo, came back and beat them 4 straight games. Tyrese Halliburton, you could make it to the championship not being a superstar. But for now, what he's doing, I mean, it is no longer a hot take. You might disagree with it, but it's no longer a hot take to say Tyrese Halliburton is more clutch than LeBron James, Kobe Bryant. Like, these are insane names. You might not agree with that right now, but the guy's shooting 85% on buckets in the last 2 minutes of game to take the lead. So watching him last night, and I had the game on and I turned it off for a little bit because it was really boring, and then I turned it back on halfway through the third quarter. And, you know, at that one point, you're just like, yeah, the Pacers are done. I don't know what it is, man. There is just a time frame where when all hope seemed lost, these guys figure it out. That's when they play their best basketball. And combine it with the Thunder. Had some pretty bad adjustments late in that game, which pulling out Chet Holmgren and pulling out Isaiah Hartenstein when not being able to get those rebounds, and effectively ended up with the rebound and then giving Tyrese Halliburton for the bucket. Tyrese Halliburton, if he wins this championship, he's a superstar. You can't even argue it anymore. I think SGA is in that same tier as well, where it's like, I think he's closer than Tyrese is. I'm like, I think you're a superstar, but win this title, so I don't even have to think about it anymore.
Yeah, no kidding, right? And you know, it's funny because, you know, and when I think of superstar, and I take this very seriously because we're paying you that much amount of money, we expect there's going to be some superstardom from there, that we know that this is what we've invested into you, right? And especially as a consumer, I'm one that, like, I want to make sure my product is top tier, you know, no matter what the case may be. So it's funny because a lot of people have been questioning about, and I'm sure you probably have been able to answer this question best as well. But when I think of face of the league, I mean, we watched, you know, Michael Jordan be that guy being face of the league, you know, very charismatic, and somebody too that took a lot of his work very seriously, whether you liked him or you didn't. But he was true to himself. So as I look at right now with the state of the NBA, like we've been talking about Jason Tatum being face of the league, but my problem with him is fourth quarter, it's clutch time. You cannot afford to fold in at least up in the last quarter of the game where no lead is safe. You saw that last night. And when I looked at Anthony Edwards, and this was his chance to be that guy for Minnesota to get over the top, I'm watching highlights of him standing around, and then he's saying, I got no opportunity to the ball. Sometimes faces of the league, you got to demand the ball at times. It's not saying you got to be arrogant, but when you got to set the tone for your offense and for the rest of your starting five up out there, you got to demand it. You got to communicate, and you got to set the tone from there. So when you think of face of the league, I mean, agree to disagree. Is that kind of something we expect from somebody like that? Like, as much as I watched that clutch shot from Tyrese Halliburton, that's face of the league stuff. That's the stuff that you know you got to come up clutch with, right?
Yeah, I don't know why everyone, and when I say everyone, I'm not pushing you into this because honestly, I just don't know your views well enough to be able to say exactly what it is you think. Michael Jordan was the face of the league up until he retired. And I think he was like almost like pushing 40 when he retired. Even when he was not 90s, 93, 92, 91 Michael Jordan, he was still the face of the league. LeBron James, until the NBA, until he hangs it up, is the face of the league. I mean, I really couldn't care less what his statistics even look like, because when you are that dominant for 2 decades, you are the face of the league. I don't know why everyone, and that's when I bring up the everyone thing, is so quick to just kind of push him out, because I would be a little bit worried what the NBA is going to look like post LeBron James. And I don't disagree with it. Probably should be an American-born athlete who's the face of the league. The foreign players, I'm not really talking about Canada, but the other, like Serbia, Slovenia, Spain, those type of countries, they just come with a different personality. And it's not an arrogance. I think LeBron is, I'm sure, a little arrogant, but when I first think of LeBron, think arrogance. Anthony Edwards, I do. And I think some of the issues with him off the court are some of the reasons why, like, I might have trouble putting him the face of the league.
Sure.
One playoff series doesn't make you face of the league. I think if there's someone who's knocking on that door, it's LeBron James's teammate. And I hate the Lakers more than anyone in this world. Like, I'm a Suns guy, but I'm also honest and fair. And although I do really like LeBron James, I think the closest person to that right now is Luka. And I would say Nikola Jokic, but he's not really interested in that.
Yeah,
you kind of have to be, you kind of have to be interested in doing that. And even Luka, I'm like, is he interested in it? Maybe not. Jason Tatum, no. I think he is a really good player, but he's someone that he has to be able to prove that he can win. And this isn't his fault, but like with at least a little bit of instability. People always say, well, he's been to conference finals almost every year he's been in the league. I'm like, yeah, he's on the Celtics. He's inherited a really good franchise. Yeah. I mean, that entire Celtics team, I got in so much trouble with Boston Celtics fans. I mean, I put out a tweet one time, got like 700,000 views, and I had Boston reporters in my DM. Like, I didn't even want to deal with it. They were telling, because I mentioned after they beat the Suns by like 50 points, I think it was, and Jason Tatum didn't play. And I was at that game and I said, hey man, Jason Tatum, really, really good player. Very good player. One of the better players in the NBA. Top 15 player, easy. Probably top 12, probably top 10. But look at Nikola Jokic, LeBron James, Luka, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. Trying to think of Giannis Antetokounmpo. When those guys don't play, are their teams that good? Jason Tatum's team's like 11-2 when he doesn't play, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And people be like, oh, well, they beat the Blazers and they beat the Sun. And I'm like, okay, well, what about in the playoffs when they beat the Knicks by like 40 in Game 5 of the Eastern Conference or in the Eastern Conference semifinals? They didn't have Jason Tatum in that game. It's not anything on Jason Tatum, but it's like one of those things, like the Brock Purdy argument. He's a good player, but it's probably a lot of the things around him that help elevate him, which is not a bad thing. I bet you Devin Booker wishes he was on the Celtics than he was the Suns at times. Yeah. So I think the title of face of the league, we're going to still have, I think, 2 to 3 years to mull it over. But I think Luka's in that conversation. Unfortunately, I think Ant is as well. I'm not a huge fan with the things he does off the court, and those type of things bother me. Booker's not in the conversation, and until he raises that floor. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, they're just not interested in it. Giannis Antetokounmpo's interesting, but by the time LeBron retires, is Giannis 33? Steph Curry, at one point was kind of pushing LeBron for that title, and then LeBron happily spanked him in the 2016 NBA Finals, and then he had to go call Kevin Durant to help him out. It's got to be like, when you say face of the league, it's got to be like in 2013 when someone said, hey, who's the face of the league? It was like LeBron. And anyone that said someone else was just wrong.
Straight to the point.
It was just wrong. Like now when you have, well, Tyrese, well, what about Anthony Edwards? Well, what about Curry? Like it's LeBron still. And it will be until he retires. And I think Cooper Flagg's got a really good chance to grab that title. Seems like he's a really good kid. From the people that I've spoken to that are close to the situation, which aren't many, one or two people who covered that team, they're like, yep, grinder, no real issues here. But we thought that was Zion too. And so, which is why it's always one of the things where, like, when I lofted up a trade idea where I was like, hey, what if the Mavericks just took Devin Booker from the Suns? Because there always is a bust factor. Now, Cooper's awesome, and he might continue to be awesome, but we kind of thought that with Zion as well. So it's a fluid situation, man. I think we're going to have a couple years to talk about it, and I'm not so sure who it is. But if I had to lean on someone that's not LeBron, I'd probably say Luka. But also that leans into, like, he's the only good player from that country ever. Whereas, like, Greece has Giannis, but again, Giannis is going to be like 33 by the time LeBron retires. I don't think that's going to be the case.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's well said because, it's a lot to think about, and we were in this case, like, the minute that MJ retired, everybody was, like, all looking who's really going to be that next face. And then by the time LeBron arrives, it was just no question. It was straight to the point. We knew it. We watched it. We've seen it. And it was just like, that was the feeling. Now it's like, people are going to be questioning an awful lot about it, but should be interesting come the next few years. But talking about some Phoenix Suns, watching this team years ago, they make it into the NBA Finals against Milwaukee. Unfortunately, came short. But we've seen with what Chris Paul was able to do with this team and elevating a lot of the younger players. But, years down the road, it's just, I can't even put a finger on it about the Suns in some of these areas because I want to see Devin Booker absolutely play at his absolute best. But it's like there's points where it's a little bit inconsistent. I don't know what it could be in some areas, but when covering this team and watching it day in and day out, are there some things you evaluate with the Suns that they just got to be able to get better at to get back into, that point where they were right there up and into the finals? I mean, is there kind of some moves in mind that you think Phoenix really needs to look at this offseason?
Well, you're trading. Well, see what the Suns did and you're talking to the wrong guy because there's a lot of outraged Suns fans because there's a lot of hindsight, 2020 hindsight where people are like, well, I knew this wasn't going to work out. Like, no, you didn't. When the Suns traded for Kevin Durant, and I remember that night, it was middle of February. It was like at midnight. I was up all night and then I had to do a radio show the next day at like 5 a.m. It was like one of the best times I had ever had. I woke my wife up in the middle of the night. I was like, we just got Kevin Durant. And everyone was thrilled about it. In 2023, in that 2023 season, they played the Denver Nuggets and they lost. The Denver Nuggets were just a better team. That team was a buzzsaw. No one was beating them. Yeah. And the Suns' mistakes were they traded DeAndre Ayton for a bag of peanuts, but they also traded Toumani Camara too before they could even see him get on the court.
Yeah.
And Grayson Allen, good player. Yusuf Nurkic, not so much. And then they decided to trade their last of their assets left. Bunch of first round swaps and second round picks, which first round swaps, again, whatever. Those, have you seen the Wizards in the last 50 years? The Suns are not swapping their first round picks with them. And anyone that tries to say that, it's not going to happen. I'm going to take that the Suns are still going to be better than the Wizards over the next 4 seasons because that's what history tells me. They give a bunch of second round picks. Whatever. I don't really care. They give Landry Shamet, Chris Paul, and they got Bradley Beal here. And in that instance is where it all went wrong. Probably should have realized it was too much redundancy. Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, they all just do the same thing really, really well. They're actually all really unselfish players. And to Bradley Beal's credit, he took the third backseat to this team. It just never materialized. Defensively, they were abysmal. Devin Booker, who was a pretty good defensive player in 2021, 2022, and 2023, we learned when you surround him with good defensive players like DeAndre Ayton around the rim, Mikal Bridges on the wing, Kevin Durant, who's still a really good defender, and Chris Paul, who's always been a sneaky good defender, Devin Booker actually looks pretty good. He can hold his own. But when you ask him to be the second best defender in your starting lineup, you're going to get cooked. And that's always been an issue. The Suns are quasi starting over. They're going to trade Kevin Durant, like 100%.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, and I said this a couple of weeks ago, this isn't just because the sourcing that came out, not obviously from me, but from other people. I think it was always going to be the Spurs. I mentioned that a couple of weeks ago. And if you could get the Suns are going to get something for Kevin Durant. There's the people out there who are mostly Suns fans who are like, oh, we're going to get 4 first-round picks and 3 pick swaps and, Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. It's going to be great. It's like, no. And then there's the other people who are like, oh, you're not paying anything for a 37-year-old player. Well, he averaged 26, 5, and 5 last year. He shows no signs of slowing down and almost had another 50, 40, 90 season, 50, 40, 85, if I'm not mistaken, season. That's like elite. He's still a top 10 player in the NBA. He's still a superstar in my eyes. So if you could get a Devin Vassell, a Jeremy Sohan, both good, like Jeremy Sohan, more a defensive player, kind of a high flyer. Devin Vassell, a good 3-and-D guy, just like a very solid player. And you get a Harrison Barnes who could shoot the 3 ball pretty well, and you get that 14th overall pick from the Spurs. I think it's a decent haul for a 37-year-old player who's got 1 year left on his deal, and that's what I think it will likely be. It's actually the trade I put out there a couple of weeks ago. I was like, this feels fair. Now, the Suns are going to have to make a compromise. Do they want to get picks or do they want to get players? And Devin Booker doesn't want to rebuild, so maybe they keep themselves afloat, and I definitely think they can with the right players and the right head coach be a top 6 seed next year. They're not competing for the championship, but they're competing for a quarterfinal spot. And so the Suns could go a lot of different directions. They're going to trade Kevin Durant. I highly doubt Bradley Beal will be on this team next year, whether it's a trade or a buyout. They don't want him here. They just don't want him here anymore.
Yeah.
And so the Suns are a few years away from competing, but that 2021 team, I'm as big as a Suns fan as anyone else, but let's be fair. They were down 2-1 to the Lakers in that first round. Anthony Davis got hurt. Granted, Anthony Davis always gets hurt, but Chris Paul's got hurt. In that second round of the playoffs, Jamal Murray tore his ACL a couple months before that, and they were starting Frank Campazzo, and literally all they had to do was put 5 guys on Nikola Jokic, and they won that series, and they swept them. And that Clippers series, Kawhi Leonard tore his ACL the series before that.
Yeah.
And in the finals, they got up 2-0 and they let it slip through the cracks. Dude, if any other fan of their team is listening, is like, I don't really care about the Suns, here's one thing you need to hear. And I learned that lesson then, and I learned it before with the Dimebacks, and it didn't work out in 2023. You can have fun, right? Like, oh, mess around. We made the finals. Wow, we're going to be like, but when you get to the finals in any league, Super Bowl, World Series, NBA Finals, it's no longer, oh my God, we're just happy to be here. You need to win it while you're there because it is incredibly difficult to get back. Like the Dimebacks a couple years ago, I was always like, I learned that lesson from 2021. When the Dimebacks went to the World Series, I was like, no more. Because if they had lost the NLCS, I'd have been like, yeah, well, it's just fun to be here. And we'll get it back next year. But I was like, nope, you need to win this now. You need to win this now because it is incredibly hard to get back. And Diamondbacks missed the playoffs last year, and this year they just lost Corbin Burns. Like, when your team gets there, I don't care what form or stage your team is in, you need to win it. Like OKC right now, they have a bunch of young guys, and even if they lose the championship, you're like, they'll be back. Will they be? We all thought the Celtics would be back this year, and they're not. One injury changes everything. So that's where I would go with that, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you make a lot of great key points behind that because, thinking about that now, and especially with where it's at, it makes total sense. And I actually kind of love that trade proposal with the Spurs because in my opinion, I felt like Houston seemed like the destination for Kevin Durant because with a young team of what they are right now, they need an experienced shooter. They need somebody that's going to give him buckets. And Kevin Durant, he is not going to take the reins of the team, but he will support and he will provide you, hey, I need buckets. I need points. I need to be able to keep the leads up. And he'll give you that. But, anything could possibly happen. But, hey, if that trade really does go through with the Spurs, the Suns will be in absolute great shape.
Well, I would also say as well, I don't think it's impossible that the Suns could get Stephon Castle for Kevin Durant. They've got a lot. I think it's probably unlikely, But Shams Charania just reported the other day, 4 to 6 teams into Kevin Durant. You already have a lot of really good young pieces on that Spurs team. Do you really need Castle? I mean, you have De'Aaron Fox there, and is it going to work with him and Castle there? Like, if you're getting Castle, then you're getting Castle, Barnes, Sohan, maybe a distant first-round pick. Like, Castle's going to be the belle of the ball there. And I don't think that's impossible. And if the Suns could do that, I would love that. But you're looking at some players that are young that can help you now and kind of develop with Booker and keep you relevant. And then a first-round pick that in this draft is valuable. Like last year, not so much. This year, it's a good draft. It's a really good NBA draft. It's not just flag. There's a lot of good guys in there.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. And I meant to ask you upon this because, I mean, the entire NBA, community was all outraged by just, this thing is rigged. How does Dallas end up getting the number 1 overall pick? But it's funny because me personally, I don't believe in coincidences. I do believe this. Like, go back to when the Cavs moved on from LeBron James. What did they end up getting? Number 1 overall pick. They got Kyrie Irving. And then you move Anthony Davis out of New Orleans. They get Zion Williamson. And the Spurs, I mean, once all those guys retired from that great team Greg Popovich coached, now you get Victor Wembanyama. And then look at this. The one thing that broke the internet, trading Luka Doncic to the Lakers, which is just, the late David Stern would have never have even made that happen, especially with years ago with that Chris Paul thing. And then it just broke the internet. And Nico Harrison gets lucky with just getting a number 1 overall pick. I feel like this. I live in Denver, and we got scratch tickets up here. Okay, I feel like the NBA lottery draft is like a scratch ticket. Okay, these probabilities, like teams that got 14, 16%, it don't matter. No. I watched the NHL lottery draft that literally the team that got fewer percentage points got the number 1 overall pick, the New York Islanders. Anything is nothing is guaranteeable. So when you think about that with some of these teams, is it just hardly like critically thinking about that? Because it's like people are like, oh, tank for this. You're going to get the best player. It's not the NFL, but it's like you kind of want to be right there in the middle when you're thinking about like with these lottery drafts, right? Or is there a different perspective you kind of think about with this?
Well, I got out of the lottery watching when the Suns won the 2018 draft lottery. That was the first time they had ever won it. I mean, people were shaking hands and kissing babies over here. And they got the number 1 overall pick. And you know who they got. They got DeAndre Ayton. Well, kind of wish I had the 2nd overall pick, because then I would have, or I think Luka Doncic went 4th. I would have rather had like the 4th overall pick. And like, even if you get the 1st overall pick, man, the NBA is such a crapshoot, because you're either dealing with players who played overseas against non-NBA or even college level talent, or you're dealing with players like DeAndre Ayton, who was one and done. I was a huge U of A fan growing up, just the team I grew up watching. And then I went to Arizona State University to get my degree. And now I'm an Arizona State ASU fan. But at the time I was watching U of A, and I had one source tell me, when U of A lost to Buffalo in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and they told me that guy will not have a very good motor in the NBA. As soon as he gets paid, he will never care again. And now DeAndre, and they already drafted his replacement in Portland. He got his max money and he stopped caring. He had a low motor. And so it's like, not only like, it doesn't really matter where you get it. You just kind of have to get lucky with the 1st overall pick, and then as well as pick the right player. Like Cooper Flag might be awesome, but like, it's not impossible. Harper from Rutgers, can't remember his first name, is better than him, or Ace Bailey or VJ out of Baylor. Like, it's not impossible. So I think it's stupid that the NBA does the draft lottery. Everyone thinks it's so cool, and I think it's stupid. Like there's a reason why the NFL is king. Give the work. Like, imagine being a Wizards fan this year. You watched like 15 wins, and now you get like the 5th overall pick. You don't even get VJ out of Baylor. Like those top 4 guys, it's Cooper, those next 3 guys, and then good players. And then after that, it's like a crapshoot. And that kind of sucks for them. So in the draft lottery, man, it's literally all about luck. I mean, the teams with the 14 point percentages, they probably should just get the best picks, but that's just what it is, man. Back when DeAndre Ayton was selected, that was the last draft lottery where the worst team in the NBA had the best odds, and I think it was like 25%, and then it went down and down and down, and now it's random every year. Like the Hawks won it last year and got Zachary Arichashea. So it really, man, there's no good answer for it. It's just all about just trying to stay out of it at this point. Or you're like the Suns and you are in it, but you don't have your own picks and you were just praying the Rockets didn't win the draft lottery. Because then it would have been really tough. What I will say about the Mavericks is like everyone's like, oh, the Mavericks deserve this. Oh man, their fan base, good for them. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm an all Arizona sports fan. We haven't won a championship in any sport since 2001. The Cardinals haven't won a division in 10 years.
And they were back in 2009.
Yeah, it was 2015 the Cardinals won their division, and that was the year they got just smacked around by Cam Newton. That's 10 years ago. The last time they went to a Super Bowl was 2008. The Suns went to the finals and then didn't work out. But Dallas. Yeah, they've got it really tough. No. There's a difference between having like bad luck in sports and just being. You ain't got
to tell me about the Coyotes. I mean, sailed.
They walked out of the state. But to be fair, like you're talking to someone that's very honest, and like I'm a big fan, but I'm going to tell you it very true. No one watched the Coyotes. That's why they went to Utah. Yeah, they never did. They people were bragging about packing out a stadium that had like 3,000 seats in it. I'm like, yeah. You should probably pack that out. There's 3,000 seats.
Sharing it with the local college that's right down
man.
The street. What are you doing?
But it is a good point of we lost a team too. Like, I don't think anyone has it worse than Arizona sports teams. I firmly believe that. I think when you look at the Cardinals haven't won a championship in 100 years. They're the longest tenured team in any sport that has not won a championship. The Suns have been around for 70 something years, never won one. The Diamondbacks won one once in 2001, but like I was 3 when that happened, so Dallas people are like, oh, they deserve this. I'm like, no, they don't. They don't deserve this. They fell face first into a lottery ticket. They traded their best player for what was a bag of peanuts. I don't care what people say about Anthony Davis. He's glass and past 30 years old. Like he's not going to be great for even the next 3 seasons. Yeah. So yeah, no, they didn't. I'm like, oh, the season from hell. I was like, oh, yeah, you poor thing. Yeah, the Suns haven't had 18 of those since you won your last championship. So, like, I mean, I was just like, whatever. Like, I work with, obviously, Locked On Podcast Network. And my, my boss, his name's Nick Angstead. He covers the Dallas Mavericks. Yep. And I just texted him. I was like, congrats, I guess. It's stupid. It's so stupid. I go, congrats, I guess. And then I keep trying to send him trades for Cooper Flag, but it is what it is.
He's just not answering the phone, is he?
No. Not unless he's yelling at me. He ain't answering that phone.
Well, to add to that, is that just because I think what we're witnessing right now is that I think we're watching Adam Silver's vision come to life. Is he wants parity in the NBA, which means I think it's over for super teams. I really, really do think so. I think we're kind of coming back to, because I remember watching it in the 2000s, and every team had a superstar and had a Robin with them, and it was like best team wins, right? So it was like everybody was kind of fighting for the same thing. And I think when you look at a lot of these small market teams like we're watching right now, does it kind of give other small market teams hope? So, but my thing with this is, and I've been very critical of Adam Silver about this, because you cannot make every player happy. Okay. These players have to go through adversity to show what they're truthfully made of. That's why the NFL, it's great every single year, because I'm going to get college players that are going to be day one starters right about the gate. And then I look at the relationship with college basketball, And I love watching the March Madness tournament. I mean, my birthday's in March, so I get excited every year when the first round starts. So now I'm starting to see college basketball with the NIL and the transfer portal. I'm starting to see now the big brands. I mean, we watched North Carolina, we watched Duke, we watch a bunch of these big programs, and it was kind of a surprise because we don't really see a whole lot of your number one seeded teams play in the championship. And now that we're starting to see these big programs make a jump, I just want to get to know these players, because if I got 2-3 years on a player in these big programs, then I know what I'm going to expect by the time they come up into the NBA. I mean, I'm sure you spoke about this on your show. Is it more of just, how do you kind of perspect this relationship? Is this kind of something Adam Silver is trying to work towards to make it balanced? Or are there still some few tweaks that need to be done? Because, again, I love watching. I think if we get the hand checks back in NBA, then it'll be much more entertaining. And people would be flooding to watch the televisions on, like, hey, Lakers and Dallas and hey, look at this team from the Indiana Pacers. Like, now a lot of these players, I knew them because I watched them in college. Is that kind of something that kind of relates to this situation?
I mean, I would agree with you that the super team era is over. I disagree with Adam Silver's way of doing it because, like, you're right. He wants to make it a level playing field and he wants to make it fair. The problem is some teams have Matt Ishbia for an owner and is willing to spend so much money that, like, he doesn't even care what he's spending it on. Like, he's like, oh, Bradley Beal, all right, yeah, cool, bring him in. Like, some people run towards the second apron, like Matt Ishbia, for all of his issues, and he's got a lot of them right now. Right now, it's the Phoenix Suns Spartans. Like, if you're just being serious about it,
yep.
And like, he doesn't care. He'll just like I think the dude is like actually insane. He cares so little about how much money he spends. And then you have the Boston Celtics who just won a championship, and all we can talk about is, yeah, they're going to shell a bunch of money in the summertime to get below the second apron because they don't want to pay the tax on it. Like, if you want it to be even, get rid of the second apron stuff. That's never going to happen now. Now that we're in it and it's over. And some teams just have good owners. And some teams, like, let me just give you a prediction. And I don't know their schedule. I don't know what the roster is going to look like. But let me just tell you this. The Wizards, Bobcats, Hornets, who's another team? Portland Trailblazers. I guarantee you those teams are all going to be awful next year. Oh, I just guarantee you it. So in the NFL, what I think the NFL does really well is like the Titans could make the playoffs this year. I can make a very rational argument to you right now, and you'd be like, I don't know if I believe it, but it's a good point that the Titans could make the playoffs. But the Wizards didn't win the draft lottery. And so we're like, oh yeah, they're going to be terrible again next year. Oh yeah, the Hornets, yeah, they're going to be awful again next year. Like, it's just flat to the point. We just know it. So in the NBA, it's just different. The first apron, second apron stuff, I think, is completely stupid. I can't believe the players agreed to this because it literally makes it to where the top 1%, Booker, Flag, Durant, all these players are going to make a crap ton of money. And then there's no middle market. Everyone else is just going to make vet minimums. And I'm like, why would you agree to that? But that's CJ McCollum, if I'm not mistaken, who's still the president of the Players Association. They just agreed to a really bad deal. I can't believe I understand why the owners would want to agree to it because they don't have to spend as much money anymore. Adam Silver wants this. And I get that everyone says, like, oh, we love upsets. Like, do you? Or would you rather watch North Carolina, Duke, Virginia when they were really good, and Villanova when they were really good in the Final Four?
Yeah.
Ratings say yes. And it's like, oh, market size. No, North Carolina is not a big market. Virginia is not a big market. Okay. And Villanova, I guarantee you 3/4 of your audience could not tell me which state Villanova is in.
How you even look at Connecticut and
yeah, UConn.
The thing about them is that they're just smart. Dan Hurley just knows what he's doing.
Well, look at the Packers, man. It was a town full of 100,000 people, and they broke the record for the amount of people at an NFL draft, which I don't even know how that's possible, but they did. And they have some of the biggest television numbers. Like, it's about how competent your franchise is, not about the market size. Like, there's no reason why the Arizona Cardinals, who have way more people in this state, we got more people in Phoenix than they do in Wisconsin. So there's no reason why when the Packers come to town, I think in like week 7 this year, 75% of the stadium is going to be Packers fans. Like, there's no reason for that. It's about competency, and some teams have it and some teams don't. Like, it's as simple as it is, man. And Adam Silver, he's very pro player. And I mean, whatever, to the point where, like, I don't hate Adam Silver. I hated David Stern. Like, the dude is obviously, he's not with us anymore, and you never want to kick a guy when that kind of stuff happens. But I'll always hold a grudge against him because of the Tim Donaghy betting scandal when he was betting against the Suns, against the San Antonio Spurs when the Suns were supposed to win the finals that year. They were the best team. They played the Spurs, and somehow Spurs just kept on getting a bunch of free throws, and no one found out about it until the offseason. And for some reason, Scott Foster, who's Tim Donaghy's right-hand man, is still in the NBA. Like, that one I can't buy. And so, like, and David Stern was not behind all of it, but, just kind of like let all that stuff go. So, I can't say I like Adam Silver less than him, but, we're in a new era of the NBA, and it's going to be a lot about drafting, which is going to be good. The drafts are going to be much more valuable and better now because we have the NIL, and players are going to stay longer. TBD, man. I think the NBA has gotten more physical over the last year and a half, especially in the playoffs this year.
I love it.
But, like, the ratings for the Pacers and OKC are going to be awful. Yeah. And it's because of people like me who, like,
which we expected it.
We expected it, but, like, I like watching the Pacers. Oklahoma City, not very much. I like Oklahoma City's atmosphere. I think they're a ton of fun. My guy Jason McIntyre, who I'm fairly close with, I do a lot of work with him.
Love that guy, Jake Mack. Yep, I listen to him every morning.
Him and I were texting the other day because he was, he's asking me to, make something for my.
Dude, I'm gonna need some New York Jets stuff because he comes in on fire with everything.
Yeah. Him and I were talking about one of his takes the other day about, like, got like 2 million views about how he wants super teams. Like, I'm not there. I think that is crazy.
Yeah,
but there is a balance of, like, I don't really like watching SGA play, and the people are, oh, you don't like real basketball. I was like, okay, then I don't like real basketball. Like, whatever. Like, you just say whatever you want. Yeah. What I'm watching is not a great brand of basketball. I like the atmosphere of OKC. I love their fan base. Like, it's like a college game every time they're there. They dig into it.
I mean, outside of Sooner football, that's like the next thing that you got.
Yeah, right? Man. I don't know if you've ever been to a Sooner football game. I went with my wife, and dude was the best man at my wedding a couple years ago. Like, that town shuts down the city for the games. It's weird. It's crazy. It's like a ghost town, and everyone's at the game.
Man. Yeah, they're invested. And look, living here up in Colorado. You bet yourself I'm going to be down there in Folsom Field. I've been there once. I actually got a chance to be down there on the field when I was there for a concert for Odessa, and it was fantastic. Absolutely loved it. And they put on a great show, but being down there on that field, I can only imagine what the atmosphere would be like in an actual college.
It's crazy.
game. Yeah.
It was like, it continued to instill my belief of, like, God, Arizona sports fans, we're just, like, we're not existent. Like, it's just a non-existent thing. It's like, and part of that is Cardinals have only been here for 25 years. And people were grown up on the Cowboys, Raiders, and Niners. And as much as I hate all those teams, like, whatever, but that's just what it is. Until I raise my kids one day to be Cardinals fans, it's not like, that's not going to get fixed until it's fixed organically. Yeah. Diamondbacks as well. Showed up in 98. It's not very long to be here. The Suns, who have a massive fan base, sell out games, no issues, been here for 75 years. Like, that's what happens. And so, like, I love OKC's atmosphere. I think it's awesome. But also there's, like, one thing to do in town, and it's go to a game. And the Indiana side of it, like, I like watching them. I think Halliburton's a fun story. But there is a little bit of juice missing, but you need that. These players have to earn the right to, in 2 years from now, we're like, oh man, I want to see them in the finals again, because those guys are bona fide stars. Like, it takes time. You don't just get to be in that club. LeBron had to earn it. KD had to earn it. Steph had to earn it. Kobe had to earn it. Jordan had to earn it. Bird, Magic, all those guys.
Yep.
Like, at first when we saw these guys, we were not stoked to watch them. So there it is, man.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, to add to that, can we get rid of these ridiculous type of locked contracts here? Because it's like the NFL, when they get those contracts, they have no problem moving them or have no problem opting out of them, and they could cut that right off the bat. With the NBA, it's like you're kind of stuck. And it's just like, how in the world are you expected to really rebuild your roster if you got a stuck contract that you can't even like try to move out or get a suitor up over there to get some salary retention? It's like it's difficult. It's insanity. But yeah, man. No, I will tell you this side note before we close out. But it's funny that you mentioned about Jason McIntyre, and I will say, like, very blessed because my show, like, I was inspired by Colin Cowherd. This is why I'm going 5+ years running, almost going up into 6 years doing this thing. And I've had the pleasure of having great interviewers, whether it was beat writers, journalists, athletes, coaches. And I continue to do this because this has just been a dream of mine from the very beginning. And so I'm going to live it, to see it through. Because,
I met Cowherd very briefly in New Orleans this past year. Jason, got me into one of their, thing that I probably shouldn't have been in, one of their hoedowns that definitely was I'll just tell you this is a fun story, like, for your listeners is, I'm at this party and I am by far the least popular person there. Like, it's not even close. I am like Terrell Owens walks in and Shannon Sharp walks in and Chad Ochocinco walks in. And I was like, I'm in the wrong party. I'm not allowed. I'm not supposed to be here. Like it was, and I won't name drop anyone else because this sounds rude to say, but it's like, it was me and the next person that was the least popular. So the second to least popular probably had like 100,000 followers on Instagram. And then there was me. And I'm like, and I can't have the stereotypical discussion of like, so what do you do for work? I'm like, I'm Shannon Sharp. What do you think I do for work? But yeah, no, Colin's, good guy. I can't act like I'm close at all with Colin Cowherd. It was just, you and I share that same aspect where a guy who he's probably my inspiration as well. And Jason, I met him a couple years ago and, we played some basketball together and stuff. And he's a good guy. He's taken me under his wing too. So I would say you are idolizing the right people, not just personalities. They're all some really good dudes. And, it's a grind, man. So I get it.
No, absolutely. And they're the best business minds. That's why, when you look at it, it's the business professionalism. And so having those kinds of idols from there, and learning what they do, that's the stuff that is a constant grind, and we put in the work every single day. So again, I'm going to see it until I live this through, because one day it's going to be a household name at some point. But Ben, appreciate you for coming on by, man. I know it was a little bit late, but hey, we got a bunch of viewers up and in here. So we got some hot stuff, but you came in the clutch for this one.
Yeah, man.
Where can people find your show and then getting a little bit more closer up into the Phoenix Suns?
Yeah, man. If people want to hear all things Arizona sports, some very minimal national news. I've learned people like to hear what your niche is. I'm all Arizona sports over on YouTube. You can find me there at Ben Garcia Show. You can find me in all social media platforms. Make it easy for you, Ben Garcia Show. And then again, as well on YouTube, Ben Garcia Show. And then I work in collaboration with the Locked On Podcast Network. You can find our show there with my guy, Brendan Clean, who's a host on there as well. That is Locked On Suns. And I'll tell you what, we've had a lot of listeners who are not just Suns fans over there because everyone wants Kevin Durant. But they're not going to get anything for him. But everyone wants him. I mean, I got Rockets fans and Spurs fans and Knicks fans all in the comment section telling us we're not going to get anything for him. But they all want him. They just would like you to hand him to them.
Yeah. If that was that easy, I mean, it's like handing a cookie right up from there. But it comes with a price.
Yeah, exactly.
Appreciate you, Ben. Enjoy the rest of the day and the rest of the weekend, man. Appreciate you for stopping on by. Great insights, great stuff. Hope to have you back up onto the show at some point soon, man. Would love the collaboration here. Take care of yourself and enjoy the weekend.
Yeah, brother. Stay safe, man.
Yes, sir. How about that, Chase?
Yeah.
Did you see the viewers? That's a lot of people. And you know what? We've been on fire with it. So Absolutely great Friday show, man. That is one for the books. We did it. We did a fantastic job. But I will
Yes, sir.
say, I thought it was funny how he mentioned that about the state of Arizona with like because again, I've only been to Arizona once in my lifetime. I'm not even joking. I passed through it like Flagstaff, and I think I may have only been to like Tempe once. But it's so true. When you think about some of these states and a bunch of the cities, whether they're college towns or they're professional sport towns, like, doesn't that just make you think? Like, it's insane. You tell me a lot about, Ohio, just the state of Ohio. I mean, everybody's going to be invested in Saturdays with Ohio State. And then you got
I live in Columbus now. Like, my wife and I just moved here.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see, like,
you're gonna
traffic
get
is
the whole-
abysmal when I come home
Yeah.
from work. And, that's just on the main highways that, like, you're coming from Cincinnati, coming from Grove City, coming from, Dayton and stuff. Like, I cannot imagine what it's going to be like when Ohio State starts football back up again.
Oh, man, you are going to get the entire, like, college experience right there. Like, because it's funny, and I think he brought a good point, especially with Oklahoma City, because that's insane. But that tells you a lot about the state of Oklahoma. They are diehard Boomer Sooner. So the minute that they do that, oh yeah, it's Sooner football. You can't.
I did not expect this, but I'm even seeing a lot of Blue Jackets fans around here. Like,
are you serious?
Yeah. Like, I'm seeing a lot of
Crazy.
Blue Jackets fans here in Columbus, and I'm like, I ain't never seen you guys anywhere in my entire life. Like, where did you guys pop up from all of a sudden?
What? They probably won't even travel to other cities in Ohio, probably, but they love Columbus, and that's their home, so I could see that, but that's insane. I mean, I would have never expected the Blue Jackets. That's crazy.
Yeah. I've seen people supporting the Blue Jackets. I've gone to stores, I've gone to other retail places and everything, and I've seen people like Blue Jackets jerseys or hats or shirts or whatever, and I'm like,
yeah, we got mixtures of like literally
what?
everything. Like, I could go down to, and it's funny because I'm sure you're used to this, but you could drive, around, like, so obviously where I live at, I could drive down to like the next town of, like, so I'm in Parker, so I could drive down to Littleton in a matter of minutes. I could drive down to like Elizabeth, and it's like, I was getting used to this because in Vegas, I was only knowing everybody by street corners. I was not knowing everybody by towns. That was something I had to adjust to. So it's like, you're already in the next town. I'm like, what? How? And then next thing you know, I go to like one of their stores, and we got everything. Nuggets, Avs, Broncos. Hell, you even got Colorado State. And Fort Collins, that's where Colorado State, it's all college town. I've been there before, and you see a lot of college kids left and right just walking all over up in Fort Collins. It's crazy. But yeah, that's insane, man. I would have never expected the Blue Jackets. That's incredible.
Well, like, they are a professional hockey team, but like, I just don't see them.
Yeah, and because I would always have assumed Columbus was that college town because of Ohio State. It books up for Ohio State football almost every Saturday. So yeah, that's insane. Man, could you you might actually get a taste of this. Texas, Ohio State, Columbus, bring it on.
I have never seen a game at the Shoe either, so
yeah, hey, there's always going to be a first for everything.
now that I'm here, I might have to get a ticket. You're
gonna have to. You know what? I have one of those, but get yourself a small little microphone and get some content up in there while you're at it, because everybody, even on this show, everybody loves a little taste of like what it's like in the life of Columbus. Seriously, there's a lot of people. Yeah. I mean, you've heard it all the time. Many people that are on the outsides of Ohio, they're like, what's really in Ohio? Ever been to Columbus? Ever been to Cincinnati? You ever been to Cleveland? You ever been into some of those areas? There's always some going on there in Ohio. So people would love that. They would love that content up from here. Man, what a week. And what a day, truthfully. I mean, got a lot of great viewers. We've had great interviewers, 3 of them. Bang, bang, bang. We've been on fire with this, man. And you know what? I'll text you after the show, but they have not stopped for next week. We are going to be literally piled with interviews next week. Like a lot of people, like I sent the messages out and I got like about 10 to 12 hits. So people are interested. They want to be on. So I'm excited about it, man. But yeah, what a week. We did a fantastic job this week. And next week's going to be even better from there. Oh, well, Chase, got to tell you, man, heck of a week. Heck of content that we got all week long, especially from our friend Wendell Davis Jr. last night and then the 3 here today. Loved every bit of it, but hope everybody enjoys their day and enjoys the weekend, because next week we're rounding this thing back up and we are not taking our foot off the gas pedal. So Stanley Cup Game 2 tonight, NBA Finals Game 2 tomorrow. You know I'm going to be sitting on that chair and I'm going to be watching a classic with those 2 small market teams. Man, Tyrese Halliburton, I don't even think we could have said it any better. But that has been fun, clutch stuff. I'm excited for this final. Appreciate everybody for joining on by here at the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever you guys get your podcast. Like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell button, and also check out a lot of our recent episodes. In case you missed it, video interviews, we'll have that all up and in there as well here on the show. It's coming soon. Got a new website built, so you guys will be able to get full access of the Snake Sports Talk Show as well, and getting to know me and my co-host True about what the show is all up and about. So for everybody here on the Snake Sports Talk Show, have a wonderful, fantastic Friday and enjoy the weekend, and we will be back here next week on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care, everyone. Enjoy it.